Tyler Grant had taken 8 blades for an alien child. And when he awoke, it was to the presence of elite warriors standing over him. Before we dive into this tale, drop a quick hello in the comments and let me know where you're tuning in from. It really helps support the channel. The blood pooled around Tyler's boots as he stood, swaying but unyielding, caught between the trembling child and the 8 armed attackers. Chaos had overtaken the alien marketplace, a wild swirl of frantic motion and distant shouts. Yet, in that singular moment, all that mattered was the cold calculation of survival, and the unforeseen choice made by a human janitor who had never intended to be a hero. The day had started like any other aboard the United Earth diplomatic vessel Harmony. Tyler rolled out of his bunk at 0500 hours, just as he had for the past 3 years. The familiar hum of the ship's engines was a constant, its low vibrations reverberating through the walls of his small quarters. He slipped into his standard-issue gray maintenance uniform. The patch on his shoulder read, Maintenance Specialist, but everyone, including Tyler himself, knew the truth. It was just a polite way of saying janitor. He glanced at the small digital photo frame on his bedside table, the only personal touch he allowed himself in the cramped space. It cycled through a few familiar images, his parents standing proudly in front of their modest farm in Nebraska, his sister beaming on her college graduation day, and Tyler himself, caught in a moment of youthful optimism during his failed stint with the Earth Defense Force. The rejection still stung, even after 5 years. A minor heart arrhythmia, barely perceptible in daily life, had been enough to disqualify him from service. So here he was, cleaning toilets and scrubbing floors on a diplomatic vessel instead of defending Earth as he'd always dreamed. At the moment, the Harmony was docked at Nexus Station, one of the largest Interspecies trading hubs in the Orion Arm. The mission was routine, a diplomatic visit to strengthen Earth's relationships with the galactic community. Humanity had only developed faster-than-light travel 15 years ago, and they were eager to forge alliances and trade partnerships. The Harmony served as a mobile embassy of sorts. Tyler grabbed his toolkit and made his way to the mess hall. The morning crowd had just finished breakfast, which gave him a narrow window to clean before the administrative staff arrived for their coffee. He nodded as he passed by several crew members, most of whom didn't acknowledge him. He was practically invisible, a cog in the machine that kept the Harmony running. "Morning," a friendly voice called out. Dr. Sarah Morgan, the ship's xenobiologist, was one of the few who consistently took the time to notice him. "Early start again?" she asked. "Same as always, Doc," Tyler replied, offering a small smile. "Someone has to keep this place from looking like a college dorm." Sarah laughed. Some of the diplomatic corps could use that reminder. "I swear the Centurion delegation sheds more scales in the conference room than my cat sheds fur on my couch." "Tell me about it," Tyler said, already mentally preparing for the special vacuum attachment he'd need later. "Any exciting research today?" he asked. "Actually, yes," Sarah replied, her eyes lighting up. "We're heading down to the marketplace. There's a Valyrian botanist who claims to have crossbred Turun orchids with Proximum fire lilies. I've got to see it to believe it." Tyler nodded, though he understood little of the scientific significance. "Sounds interesting. Be careful down there, though. I heard some of the security guys talking about increased tensions between the Draxians and Nelvari. Something about a trade dispute." "Always the worrier," Sarah teased with a gentle smile. "I'll be fine. It's a public marketplace, and station security is everywhere." "Right, of course," Tyler replied, suddenly feeling foolish for his concern. "Enjoy your flower shopping." As Sarah walked off, Commander Blake Turner, the ship's security chief, entered the mess hall. He grabbed a coffee and made his way over to Tyler. "Grant," the commander greeted with a curt nod. "Commander," Tyler said, continuing to wipe down the tables. "You hear about the situation with the Draxians?" Blake asked, his voice dropping. Tyler kept his gaze on his work. "Just rumors, sir." Blake lowered his voice further. "Those rumors aren't unfounded. Intelligence suggests some Draxian extremists aren't happy about the new trade agreement with Earth. Nothing concrete, but keep your eyes open if you go to the station today." Tyler looked up, surprised that Blake was sharing this with him. "Me, sir." Blake shrugged. "You maintenance guys are everywhere unnoticed. Perfect observers. Besides, you're ex-military, right? Tyler's face flushed. Hardly, sir. I failed the medical exam. Still had the training, though, Blake said. Just keep your eyes open. That's all I'm asking. With that, the commander walked off, leaving Tyler to wonder why he had been singled out. He finished cleaning the mess hall and moved on to his other duties, but Blake's words lingered in his mind. After completing his morning tasks, Tyler checked the schedule and saw he had a few hours of free time. He decided to head to the station, not because of Blake's warning, but because he needed to pick up a specialized cleaning solvent for the Arctron ambassador's quarters. At least that was the excuse he gave himself. Next to the station was a sprawling complex, home to over 50,000 permanent residents, with hundreds of thousands more passing through each month. The Central Marketplace was its vibrant heart, a multi-level bazaar where species from across the galaxy came to trade goods, services, and information. Tyler stepped off the transport tube and into the lively chaos of the marketplace. The air was thick with the mixed scents of exotic foods, perfumes, and the natural odors of dozens of different species. Voices in countless languages swirled together, creating a constant hum punctuated by the occasional shout of a vendor peddling their wares. Tyler weaved through the crowd, carefully sidestepping the more physically sensitive species. A group of tall, willowy Illuri passed by, their translucent skin shimmering under the market lights. Near a food stall, a pair of bulky Terracian merchants were locked in a heated debate with a human trader, haggling over the price of rare earth spices. Tyler kept his head down, following the path toward the maintenance supply shop, where he could pick up the cleaning solvent he needed. As he rounded a corner, he spotted Dr. Morgan, deep in conversation with a slender, lavender-skinned alien. He recognized the creature as the Valyrian botanist she'd mentioned earlier, engrossed in a discussion about glowing plants. Tyler chose not to interrupt and continued on his way. The maintenance shop was tucked away in a quieter corner of a marketplace. Tyler quickly located the solvent he was looking for and made his purchase. But just as he turned to leave, a commotion from the main thoroughfare caught his attention. Raised voices, angry voices, echoed through the corridor, drawing his curiosity. Tyler moved toward the sound. A small crowd had gathered around what appeared to be a tense confrontation between a Draxian merchant and a station security officer. The Draxian scales had darkened to a deep crimson, a clear sign of agitation in their species. The security officer's hand hovered near his stunner, a visible warning. "This is the third time this week," the officer was saying, frustration evident in his voice. "You can't block the walkway with your merchandise. Other vendors do the same," the Draxian hissed, showing rows of sharp teeth. "You target me because I'm Draxian. Ever since your humans signed the treaty, you think you can push us around." The officer, clearly tired of the back and forth, spoke with more authority. "Just move your cart back to the designated area, CRE." The Draxian grumbled under his breath, muttering what Tyler assumed were curses in his native language, and reluctantly complied. As the crowd began to disperse, Tyler noticed a group of Draxians watching from a nearby alcove. They were speaking in low voices, occasionally casting furtive glances toward the security officer. Tyler felt a shiver run down his spine as Blake's earlier warning replayed in his mind. Maybe the commander's concerns weren't so unfounded after all. He briefly debated whether he should report what he'd witnessed, but ultimately decided there was no immediate threat. It was probably just a couple of disgruntled merchants, nothing more. He resumed his walk toward the transport tube that would take him back to the Harmony. As he passed a row of food stalls, a small figure suddenly darted out from between two vendors, colliding with him. Tyler stumbled backward, but quickly regained his footing. Looking down, he found himself face to face with a Nelvari child. The Nelvari, a species that had only recently joined the Galactic community, resembled Earth's felines in many ways. This child couldn't have been more than 8 or 9 years old by human standards. Pale blue fur, large amber eyes wide with fear. "Whoa there, little one," Tyler said gently, steadying the child. "Where are you off to in such a hurry?" The child spoke quickly in the Nelvari language, her words jumbled and difficult for Tyler's universal translator to fully parse. He caught only fragments. Mother, lost, scared. Tyler knelt down to her level. You're lost? Looking for your mother? The child nodded vigorously. Tyler scanned the crowd, hoping to spot any adult Nelvari who might be searching for the missing child. The marketplace was as busy as ever, but there was no sign of panic or distress among the crowd. My name's Tyler, he said, pointing to himself. Can you tell me your name? Mara, the child replied after a moment's hesitation. My mother is Tila. We were shopping, and then there were loud voices. People running. I got scared and ran too, but now I can't find her. Tyler's heart softened as he heard the fear in her voice. He smiled reassuringly. Well, Mara, let's find your mom together, okay? She must be very worried about you. The child seemed to relax at his calm tone. Tyler stood and offered his hand, which Mara took after only a brief hesitation. Her small, paw-like hand felt warm in his. Where did you last see your mother? Tyler asked as they began walking. Mara pointed toward the central plaza of the marketplace. By the fountain, we were looking at jewelry. Tyler nodded and led the way. The central plaza was one of the busiest areas of the marketplace, with the fountains serving as a common meeting point for shoppers. As they approached, Tyler surveyed the crowd for any sign of an adult Nelvari searching for the child. The plaza seemed even more crowded than usual, and Tyler noticed a greater presence of station security officers patrolling the area. He kept a firm but gentle grip on Mara's hand, careful not to lose her in the throng of shoppers. Do you see your mother anywhere? Tyler asked. Mara stood on her tiptoes, her ears swiveling as she scanned the crowd. No, she said, her voice trembling slightly. But that is where we were. She pointed to a jewelry stall near the fountain. Tyler steered them toward the stall, where a tan-skinned vendor was displaying handcrafted pieces. The woman looked up as they approached. Excuse me, Tyler said, addressing the vendor. This child is looking for her mother, a Nelvari named Tila. They were here about 30 minutes ago. Have you seen her? The vendor's expression softened as she glanced at Mara. Yes, they were here not long ago. The mother seemed concerned about something and left in a hurry. She went that way. The vendor pointed toward one of the corridors leading off the plaza. She may have gone to the security office. There's been some commotion today. Tyler thanked her and led Mara in the direction the vendor had indicated. The corridor was quieter than the plaza, lined with smaller shops offering specialty goods. About halfway down, they came upon a small gathering of people standing outside what appeared to be a security substation. As they approached, Tyler saw an adult Nelvari female speaking animatedly with a security officer. The Nelvari mother cried out upon seeing them. Oh, thank the ancestors! Mother! Mira released Tyler's hand and ran toward her, throwing herself into the embrace of the worried woman. Tyler approached more slowly, relief flooding his chest at the successful reunion. Tila, the mother, looked up at him, her amber eyes mirroring those of her daughter, filled with profound gratitude. You found her, she said, her voice trembling. Thank you, human. I was so worried that I've been threats. She hesitated before adding, and when I couldn't find her, it was no trouble, Tyler reassured her, his voice steady. I'm just glad she's safe. The security officer, a stocky centurion with sharp mandibles, gave Tyler a brief nod. Good timing. We've had reports of Draxian troublemakers in the market today. Not a good day for a child to be wandering alone. Tyler frowned. Troublemakers? Like the merchant who was arguing about his cart placement. The officer clicked his mandibles in dismissal. Krez, he's always complaining. I'm talking about the extremist faction. They've been spreading anti-alliance propaganda, specifically targeting humans and their allies like the Nelvari. Tila, still clutching Mira tightly, flinched. My mate works in the Diplomatic Corps. He helped negotiate the Earth Nelvari medical exchange program. We've received messages, threats. Tyler's concern deepened. This matched too closely with what Commander Blake had mentioned earlier. Maybe you should return to your ship or residence, he suggested. If there's genuine concern for your safety. His words were cut short by a sudden outburst from the direction of the central plaza. Shouts rang out, followed by the unmistakable crackle of energy weapons discharging. The officer immediately reached for his communicator. "Central, this is Outpost 3. What's happening in the plaza?" The voice that responded was loud enough for Tyler to hear. "Draxian extremists. At least 8 of them, armed with blade weapons. They're targeting Alliance species. All available personnel, respond." The officer immediately drew his stunner. "Stay here," he ordered, then dashed toward the plaza. Tila looked terrified, her fur standing on end. "We need to get somewhere safe," she said, her voice strained. Tyler nodded. "The security office. It should be secure." They turned toward the station door, but before they could reach it, a wave of marketplace patrons came rushing down the corridor, fleeing from the plaza. In the ensuing chaos, Tyler was separated from Tila and Mira. When the crowd began to thin, he spotted them several meters ahead, pressed tightly against the corridor wall. And from the entrance of the plaza, 3 Draxians emerged, their scales a deep crimson. Each one was brandishing a ceremonial blade, their eyes fixed intently on the Nelvari pair. Tyler didn't think, he just acted. Years of training surged through him despite never having seen actual combat. He positioned himself between the Draxians and the 2 Nelvari, his voice firm as he called, "Get inside." Now, Tila grabbed Mira and made a run for the security office door, but it was locked. The officer had left in such a hurry that he hadn't left them access. The Draxians slowed their approach, surprised by Tyler's intervention. The leader, a large male with a scarred crest, hissed at him. "Stand aside, human. Our quarrel is not with you." "It is now," Tyler replied, widening his stance. He was unarmed, facing 3 opponents armed with blades. The odds were not in his favor. "The female's mate is a traitor to galactic independence," the Draxian leader sneered. "He and his family must answer for their crimes against sovereign species." Tyler's expression hardened. "Whatever political grievances you have, threatening a child isn't going to resolve them." The Draxian's inner eyelids flickered, an unmistakable sign of aggression. "Last warning, human." Behind him, Tyler heard Mira's soft whimper, and Tila was desperately trying to pry open the security door. He made his choice. "You'll have to go through me first," Tyler said, his voice calm but resolute. Without hesitation, the Draxians lunged. The leader's blade cut through the air toward Tyler, but he sidestepped, grabbing the Draxian's wrist and using the creature's momentum to throw him off balance. Basic self-defense, first week training. But then, the second Draxian came at him from the side. Tyler ducked, but wasn't quick enough to avoid a glancing cut across his shoulder. Pain flared, but adrenaline coursed through him, and he kept moving. He landed a solid punch to the second Draxian's throat, a vulnerable spot despite their thick, scale bodies. The third Draxian circled, looking for an opening, while the first one regained his stance and advanced again. Tyler backed up, keeping himself between the Draxians and the Nelvari. His options were dwindling. He couldn't keep this up for long, and help wasn't coming fast enough. "Run!" Tyler shouted to Tila. "Find another officer." But before Tila could react, 5 more Draxians appeared at the entrance of the corridor. They were trapped. What happened next seemed to unfold in slow motion. The Draxians attacked as one, their blades gleaming under the harsh marketplace lights. Tyler fought with everything he had, ducking, blocking, striking when he could. He managed to disarm one attacker, using the fallen blade to fend off the others, but the numbers were overwhelming. One blade found his ribs, another sliced into his thigh. A third grazed his forearm as he deflected what would have been a fatal strike to his chest. The pain was unbearable, but Tyler didn't give in. He stayed standing, forcing himself to keep moving, to keep fighting. The floor beneath him became slick with his blood, his vision narrowing as darkness crept in around the edges. Through sheer willpower, he remained upright, determined to protect the child and her mother for as long as he could. Then, in the distance, he heard shouting, reinforcements. Finally, help had arrived. The Draxians heard it too. The leader made one final, desperate lunge, not toward Tyler, but aiming to bypass him and reach for Mira. Tyler spun, taking the blade deep in his back. The force of the strike brought him to his knees. As he collapsed, he saw station security officers flooding into the corridor. The Draxians began to retreat, pursued by the officers. Tyler fell fully to the floor, his strength finally giving out. The last thing he heard was Mira's voice, high and frightened, calling his name. Then darkness took him. Tyler wasn't sure if he was dead. The pain had faded, replaced by a strange sensation of floating. Voices drifted around him, speaking in languages he couldn't understand. He tried to open his eyes, but the effort felt impossible. Time passed. How much, he couldn't say. Gradually, sensations returned. The soft hum of medical equipment, the sterile smell of a hospital, and a dull, distant ache from healing wounds. With great effort, Tyler finally managed to open his eyes. The ceiling above him was unfamiliar, high, with an iridescent sheen to the panels. This wasn't a harmony. He tried to sit up, but the pain shot through his torso, making him wince. A gentle but firm hand pressed him back down. "Please remain still, Tyler Grant. Your wounds are still healing," a voice said. It was melodious, with an accent Tyler didn't recognize. He turned his head slightly and saw a Nelvari female in medical attire standing beside his bed. "Where am I?" he asked, his voice rough from disuse. "You are in the Royal Medical Center on Nell Prime," she replied, checking the readings on a monitor beside his bed. "You were transferred here after initial stabilization on Nexus Station. Your injuries were extensive." Tyler blinked in confusion. "Nell Prime? That's not even in the same system as Nexus Station. How long have I been unconscious?" 7 standard days, the medic replied. "You were kept in an induced coma to facilitate healing. Your body suffered significant trauma." 7 days. Tyler struggled to process this. He'd been transported across star systems while unconscious. Why? And why would they bring a human janitor to Nelvari's homeworld? The child, he said suddenly, memories flooding back. Mira and her mother. Are they safe? The medic nodded. "They are unharmed, thanks to your actions." Tyler relaxed slightly, relieved. "Good. That's good. Your ship has been notified of your location and condition," the medic continued. "Your captain expressed concern and gratitude. They've extended the Harmony's diplomatic mission to include a stop at Nell Prime once you are cleared for transport." Tyler was touched, though he doubted the captain had known his name before this incident. "That's very considerate. You should rest now," the medic advised. "The royal physician will check on you shortly." "Royal physician?" Tyler murmured, too exhausted to question it further. It seemed excessive for someone like him, just a maintenance worker. But his body was too tired to argue, and he closed his eyes, drifting back into sleep. When Tyler next awoke, the room was dimly lit. Night cycle, he presumed. He felt stronger than before, the pain reduced to a dull throb. Cautiously, he tested his body, finding he could shift his position without agony. Progress. He became aware that he wasn't alone. Turning his head, he saw a small figure seated in a chair beside his bed. Mira, the Nelvari child, was curled up, almost entirely asleep. Her blue fur had a silvery sheen in the low light. Beside her sat Tila, her mother, also asleep. Tyler was touched that they would visit him, especially so late. He lay still, not wanting to disturb them. As he watched them, the door to his room slid open silently. A tall Nelvari male entered, his fur a deep gray with silver markings. He wore an elaborate uniform adorned with insignia that Tyler didn't recognize. The newcomer noticed Tyler was awake and approached the bed, moving quietly so as not to wake the 2 sleeping figures. "Tyler Grant," the Nelvari male said softly, his voice deep and resonant. "It's good to see you conscious. I am Roland, mate to Tila, and father to Mira." "Sir," Tyler acknowledged with a slight nod, the most movement he could comfortably manage. "Your family is safe. That's what matters." Roland's ears flicked forward, a sign of either interest or surprise. Tyler couldn't tell. "You speak as though your actions were trivial, human." They were not. Before Tyler could respond, the door opened again. This time, several Nelvari entered, wearing armor unlike anything Tyler had seen before. Sleek, almost liquid in appearance, with subtle lights pulsing beneath the surface. Each of them carried an advanced-looking weapon at their side, and they positioned themselves around the room, standing at attention. Tyler tensed, confused. Were they expecting trouble here, in what appeared to be a secure medical facility? Following the guards, two more Nelvari entered. One was elderly, his silver fur styled with an elaborate headdress. The other was middle-aged, wearing what could only be described as royal regalia. The elderly Nelvari immediately dropped to one knee, head bowed. "Your Majesty," he said, his voice filled with reverence. "My Lord Regent, you honor us with your presence." Tyler's mind reeled. Majesty? Lord Regent? Was he in the presence of Nelvari royalty? He tried to sit up, feeling it inappropriate to lie prone before such important figures, but the pain kept him in place. The older Nelvari, addressed as Lord Regent by Ambassador Rin, gestured for Roland to rise. "Ambassador Rin, there is no need for formality at this hour. We have come to see the human who saved your daughter." The younger Nelvari, who seemed to be the monarch, approached Tyler's bedside. By now, Tila and Mira had both awoken. Mira's eyes widened at the sight of the royal visitors, and she quickly mimicked her father's posture of respect. "Tyler Grant," the monarch said, his voice surprisingly gentle. "I am King Ellerin of the Nelvari Confederation. I understand we owe you a great debt." Tyler swallowed hard. "Your Majesty, I just did what anyone would do. I was in the right place at the right time." The king's whiskers twitched, possibly in amusement. "Diplomat Rand tells me you were seriously wounded protecting his family. You took 8 blade strikes and still managed to remain standing until help arrived. This is not what anyone would do, as you claim." The regent stepped forward. "You should know, human, that Mira is not just any child. She is the king's niece of the royal bloodline. Ambassador Rin is the king's brother." Tyler suddenly felt weighted, not just by his injuries, but by the realization of how much more this situation had become. He had intervened to protect a child, any child. The fact that she was apparently Nelvari royalty hadn't even crossed his mind. "I didn't know," he said honestly. "It wouldn't have mattered if I had. She was a child in danger. That's all I saw." The king exchanged a glance with the regent, something unspoken passing between them. Then, turning back to Tyler, he said, "Your actions reflect the highest principles of honor and courage. The Nelvari Confederation acknowledges its debt to you, Tyler Grant of Earth. When you are recovered, there will be a formal recognition of your service." Tyler didn't know how to respond. This all seemed wildly out of proportion to what he'd done. Before he could figure out what to say, Mira, having slipped away from her mother, stood beside his bed. "Are you feeling better, Tyler?" she asked, her voice small but clear. Despite everything, the pain, the confusion, the unexpected royal audience, Tyler found himself smiling at the child. "Much better, Mira. Thank you for asking." Mira nodded. "Seriously, I was scared when you fell. There was so much red." "Mira," Tila gently chided. "Perhaps now is not the time." "It's okay," Tyler reassured them. "I'm tougher than I look, Mira. Humans heal quickly." The king watched this exchange with interest. "Indeed, your species' resilience is remarkable. Our physicians were impressed by your body's response to treatment." The regent cleared his throat. "Perhaps we should allow Tyler Grant to rest." "Your Majesty, there will be time for further discussion when he is stronger." The king nodded in agreement. "Of course, Tyler Grant. We will speak again soon. Until then, know that you are under the protection and care of the Nelvari royal house. Whatever you require will be provided." With that, the royal party departed, the guards filing out after them. Roland turned to his family. "We should go as well," he said. "It is late, and Mira should be in bed." Tila nodded, but Mira seemed reluctant to leave. She approached Tyler's bedside once more. "Will you tell me about Earth next time? I've never met a human before you." Tyler smiled again. "I like that, Mira. Get some rest." The family bid him good night and left. Tyler stared at the ceiling, trying to make sense of the day's events. He had gone from being an invisible janitor to a royal savior in the span of a week. It seemed impossible. Yet here he was, in a royal medical facility on a planet he never expected to visit. Exhaustion overtook him once more, and he drifted back into sleep, wondering what the coming days would bring. Tyler's recovery progressed rapidly over the next few days. The Nelvari medical technology was far beyond anything humanity had, accelerating his healing in ways that would have been impossible in a human facility. By the fourth day after regaining consciousness, he was able to sit up without assistance. By the sixth, he could stand and walk short distances. During this time, he received regular visits from Mira and her family. True to his promise, he told the child about Earth, about the vast oceans and towering mountains, the diverse wildlife, and the ever-changing seasons. Mira listened with rapt attention, her ears swiveling forward to catch every word. Ren often joined them, asking thoughtful questions about human culture and governance. Tyler answered as best he could, though he sometimes felt out of his depth. He was a janitor, not a diplomat or anthropologist. Your knowledge is valuable nonetheless, Ren assured him after one such conversation. You provide perspective outside the official diplomatic channels. There is authenticity in your observations. On the 10th day after waking, Tyler received a different visitor, Commander Blake Turner from the Harmony. The security chief looked uncomfortable in the ornate Nelvari surroundings, but managed to smile when he saw Tyler sitting up in bed. "Grant," Blake said, approaching the bedside. "You're looking better than I expected." "Commander," Tyler greeted him. "The Nelvari medical tech is something else." Blake nodded, glancing around the room. "So I've heard. You've caused quite a stir. You know, the captain's been fielding calls from Earth Central Command ever since news broke about the heroic human who saved Nelvari royalty." Tyler winced. "I didn't know she was royalty." "That's part of what makes the story so compelling," Blake said dryly. "Apparently, a regular human maintenance worker risks his life to save an alien child, unaware she's a princess. The media is having a field day. The notion of his actions being reported in Earth media was surreal. I'm just a janitor who happened to be in the right place at the right time," Tyler insisted. "8-blade wounds say otherwise," Blake countered. "I've reviewed the security footage, Grant. What you did, it was extraordinary." Tyler looked away, uncomfortable with the praise. "How's the diplomatic situation? The Draxians?" "The Draxian government has officially denounced the extremists," Blake said. "They're calling it an unsanctioned act of terrorism." "There's been no impact on the alliance negotiations," Blake said. "Good," Tyler replied, genuinely relieved. "And the attackers? They're in custody. They'll face trial under Interspecies law. Your testimony may be required, but that can wait until you're fully recovered." The two continued talking for a while longer, with Blake updating Tyler on ship news and delivering messages for various crew members. Dr. Sarah Morgan, for instance, had been organizing a welcome-back party for him. Even the captain had recorded a personal message, which Blake played on his tablet. As Blake prepared to leave, he hesitated. "There's something else you should know, Grant," he said. "Earth Central has been in communication with Nelvari High Command. There's talk of a formal diplomatic position for you." Tyler stared at him. "Me? A diplomat? I clean toilets, Commander." Blake shrugged. "You also single-handedly saved a major interspecies alliance by protecting the niece of the Nelvari king. Diplomacy is about relationships, Grant. You've established a rather significant one." After Blake left, Tyler sat in stunned silence. A diplomatic position. It seemed absurd. Yet, as he reflected on his conversations with Roland, with King Ellerin, even with Mira, he began to realize they had been treating him not as a janitor, but as someone of importance, someone with value beyond his ability to clean and maintain. The following day, Tyler was declared fit enough to leave the medical center. He was provided with quarters in the royal complex, modest by royal standards, but far more luxurious than anything he had ever experienced before. His uniform had been replaced with clothing in the human style, made from Nelvari fabrics, soft and comfortable against his still healing skin. That evening, Tyler was summoned to a meeting with King Ellerin and the Lord Regent. He was escorted to a private study rather than the formal throne room, suggesting that this was not an official audience. The king greeted him warmly, inviting him to sit in one of the comfortable chairs arranged around a low table. The regent was already seated, a series of data tablets spread out before him. "Tyler Grant," the king began, I hope you are finding your accommodations satisfactory. More than satisfactory, Your Majesty, Tyler replied honestly. I'm grateful for your hospitality. The king nodded, clearly pleased. I understand your ship's commander visited yesterday. Did he convey the interest Earth Central has expressed regarding your future? He mentioned something about a diplomatic position, Tyler said cautiously, though I'm not sure I understand what that would entail. The regent spoke up. The relationship between Nelvari and Earth is at a crucial juncture. The medical exchange program is just the beginning of what could be a profound alliance. But alliances require trust, and trust requires connections, and I've established a connection. Tyler paused, beginning to understand. Precisely, the king confirmed. Moreover, you have demonstrated qualities that both our species value. Courage, selflessness, a willingness to protect the vulnerable regardless of species. These are powerful symbols, particularly in these times of interspecies tension. The regent tapped one of the tablets, and a holographic display flickered to life above the table. It showed news headlines from across the galaxy, many featuring variations of the same story. Human hero saves Nelvari princess. Some included blurry images captured from the station's security feeds, showing Tyler standing against the Draxian attackers. Your actions have resonated beyond our two worlds, the regent said. Many species are watching how this unfolds. Tyler felt the weight of responsibility settling on his shoulders. What exactly would this position involve? The king leaned forward. You would serve as a special envoy between our worlds, not replacing the formal ambassadors, but working alongside them. Your unique perspective and the authenticity Commander Blake mentioned would be valuable assets. I'm not qualified, Tyler protested. I have no diplomatic training, no higher education in interspecies relations. You have something more valuable, the king countered. You have moral authority. You acted without hesitation to protect a child, not of your species, at great personal risk. That speaks volumes about your character and, by extension, about humanity's potential as allies. The conversation continued for some time, the king and regent explaining the proposed role in more detail. Tyler listened, asked questions, and gradually came to see that they were serious. This wasn't a token position or a political stunt. They genuinely believed he could contribute to interspecies relations. As the meeting concluded, the king had one final question. Will you consider our offer, Tyler Grant? Tyler thought of his life aboard the Harmony, the endless routine of cleaning and maintenance, his invisibility among the crew. He thought of his failed military ambitions, of the photo frame beside his bed with images of opportunities never realized. Then, he thought of Mira's face when she asked about Earth, of Rollins' thoughtful questions about human culture, and of the potential to be part of something truly meaningful. I will consider it, Your Majesty, Tyler said. Thank you for the opportunity. The next day, a formal ceremony was held to recognize Tyler's actions. In the Grand Hall of the Royal Palace, before assembled Nelvari dignitaries and the crew of the Harmony, King Ellerin bestowed upon Tyler the Order of the Silver Star, one of Nelvari's highest honors for courage. As he knelt to receive the medallion, Tyler caught sight of Mira standing with her parents. The child gave him a small wave, which he returned with a smile. In that moment, Tyler knew his decision had been made. When King Ellerin publicly asked him if he would accept the position of special envoy, Tyler answered without hesitation. Yes. The hall erupted in applause, human and Nelvari alike. Later, at the reception following the ceremony, Dr. Sarah Morgan approached him, grinning broadly. Special Envoy Grant, she said, raising a glass in toast. Who would have thought it? Tyler laughed, surprised by the sound of his own voice. Certainly not me. I'm still half convinced I'll wake up tomorrow back in my maintenance uniform. Sarah's expression shifted to something more serious. You know, I always thought there was more to you than just a janitor. I'm glad others are finally seeing it too. Thank you, Tyler said, genuinely touched. That means a lot. As the reception continued, Tyler found himself approached by various dignitaries, both Nelvari and human. Many wanted to hear his first-hand account of the marketplace incident, while others were keen to hear his thoughts on interspecies relations. Tyler answered as honestly as he could, gradually growing more comfortable in his new role. Near the end of the evening, as the crowd began to thin, Mira appeared at his side. She was dressed formally for the occasion, looking every bit the princess she apparently was. "Tyler," she said, "will you be staying on Nell now?" He nodded. "For a while at least. I'll be working with your father and other diplomats." Mira's ears perked up. "Good. I still have many questions about Earth, and I can show you Nelver. There are beautiful forests near the palace with creatures you've never seen." "I'd like that," Tyler said with a smile. "And perhaps," Mira added, her voice taking on a more serious tone, "you could teach me to be brave like you." Tyler knelt down to her level, mindful of his still healing wounds. "Mira, you already are brave. You stayed calm during a frightening situation. That's real courage." The child considered this for a moment, but then said, "But I ran and hid. You stood and fought." "Different situations call for different kinds of bravery," Tyler explained. "Sometimes the brave thing is to run and find help. Sometimes it's to stand your ground. The important thing is to do what's right, even when it's scary." Mira nodded solemnly. "I think I understand." Then, unexpectedly, she wrapped her arms around him in a hug. "Thank you for saving me, Tyler." Tyler returned the embrace gently. "You're welcome, Mira." As he watched the child return to her parents, Tyler reflected on the strange path his life had taken. From rejected military applicant to invisible janitor to diplomatic envoy. None of it had been part of his plan. Yet somehow it felt right. The following weeks were a whirlwind of activity. Tyler divided his time between diplomatic meetings, cultural orientation sessions, and recovery therapy for his injuries. He moved into permanent quarters in the diplomatic wing of the royal complex and began learning the basics of the Nelvari language. His universal translator was helpful, but direct communication was always preferable in diplomatic settings. True to her word, Mira became his unofficial guide to Nelvari culture, showing him around the palace grounds and teaching him about local customs. In return, Tyler told her stories about Earth and answered her endless questions about human society. One evening, about a month after the ceremony, Tyler received an unexpected communication from Earth Central Command. It was a personal message from the Secretary General of the United Earth Government, commending his actions and officially confirming his appointment as Special Envoy to the Nelvari Confederation. Attached to the message was a file containing information about his family. His parents had been interviewed by Earth media about their son's heroics and had expressed their pride in his actions. His sister had apparently been inundated with messages from old classmates who remembered Tyler from school. The final attachment moved Tyler the most. A formal letter rescinding his rejection from the Earth Defense Force, acknowledging that his actions had demonstrated the qualities they sought in their personnel. It was largely symbolic at this point, as his new role made military service impossible, but the acknowledgement meant more to him than he could express. That night, he stood on the balcony of his quarters, gazing up at the unfamiliar stars of the Nelvari sky. Somewhere among them was Earth, and the life he had left behind. He didn't regret his choice. His new role gave him purpose in a way that cleaning the harmony never had. But there was a certain bittersweetness to the realization that his path had changed so completely because of a chance encounter in a marketplace. A soft knock at his door interrupted his thoughts. He opened it to find Roland standing in the corridor. "Ambassador Tyler," he greeted him. "Is everything all right?" "All is well," Roland assured him. "I merely wish to speak with you before tomorrow's council meeting." Tyler invited him in, and they settled in the sitting area of his quarters. Roland declined a refreshment, getting straight to the point of his visit. "The council will be discussing the expansion of the medical exchange program tomorrow," he said. "There are some who have concerns about moving too quickly." Tyler nodded. This wasn't surprising. Conservative elements existed in every government. They worry about cultural contamination, I guess, he ventured. "Among other things," Roland confirmed. "There's a faction that believes we should maintain our traditional isolation, despite the benefits an alliance might bring. They see what happened to Mira as evidence that engagement with other species brings danger." The actions of a few extremists shouldn't define interspecies relations, Tyler said firmly. I agree, Roland said, and your presence helps make that case. The fact that a human risked his life for a Nelvari child counters their narrative rather effectively. Tyler shifted uncomfortably. I don't want to be used as a political symbol. Roland's ears flicked, an expression of understanding. Nor would I ask that of you. I merely suggest that your authentic perspective, your story, has power. The Council would benefit from hearing it directly from you. After considering this, Tyler nodded. I'll speak if called upon. Honestly, as always, Roland said, rising to leave. He paused at the door. Tyler, I have not yet properly thanked you for what you did. Not as an ambassador, not as the king's brother, but as a father. You saved my daughter's life, and for that, my family will be eternally grateful. The depth of emotion in Roland's voice touched Tyler. She's a remarkable child, he said simply. I'm glad I was there. After Roland left, Tyler returned to the balcony. His thoughts turned to the council meeting tomorrow and what he might say. He wasn't a polished diplomat or a skilled orator, but perhaps that didn't matter. Perhaps what the council needed to hear wasn't carefully crafted rhetoric, but simple truth that when faced with a child in danger, species had been irrelevant. Only the need to protect had mattered. In that moment of clarity, Tyler understood why he had been chosen for this role. Not despite his lack of diplomatic experience, but because of it. His actions had been uncolored by political calculation or diplomatic protocol. They had been purely human, and in being so, they had revealed the potential for genuine connection across species boundaries. The council meeting the next day was held in a grand chamber within the royal palace. Tyler, dressed in his formal envoy attire, sat beside the Earth ambassador, a career diplomat named Elena Vasquez, who had arrived on Nell Prime a week after the incident. She had been supportive of Tyler's unusual appointment, recognizing the unique connection he had established with the royal family. As Roland had predicted, the discussion grew heated when the medical exchange program expansion came up for debate. A Nelvari counselor named Meredith led the opposition, his dark orange fur bristling as he spoke. We rush headlong into a deeper alliance when we have barely begun to understand these humans, he argued. The incident in the marketplace demonstrates the dangers of too much engagement with the wider galaxy. The child of the royal family was endangered. King Ellerin, presiding over the council from his elevated seat, glanced at Tyler. Special Envoy Grant, would you care to address the council on this matter? Tyler stood, feeling the weight of every counselor's gaze upon him. Honored counselors, he began, I understand your concerns for the safety of your people. Caution is wise when forming new relationships, whether between individuals or species. He paused, gathering his thoughts. The incident in the marketplace was indeed frightening and dangerous, but I would suggest it demonstrates not the failure of interspecies relations, but their promise. The attackers were a small group of extremists whose views are rejected by their own government. They acted out of fear. Fear of change, fear of connection, fear of a future different from the past. Several counselors nodded, and Tyler continued with growing confidence. In contrast, what I experienced after the incident was remarkable. I was brought to your world, healed by your physicians, welcomed into your society. I, a simple maintenance worker with no special status, was treated with dignity and kindness. He looked directly at Counselor Meredith. You speak of the dangers of engagement. I have seen its benefits firsthand. The medical exchange program alone has the potential to save countless lives on both our worlds. Would you deny your people those benefits out of fear? Meredith's first settled slightly. It is not merely fear, human. It is concern for the preservation of our ways, our values. With respect, Counselor, Tyler responded, cultures aren't preserved by isolation, but by confidence in their strength and adaptability. The Nelvari I have met are proud of their heritage while being curious about others. That balance seems worthy of preservation. The debate continued for some time, with other counselors joining in. Tyler spoke when addressed, but otherwise listened carefully. By the session's end, a compromise had been reached. The medical exchange would expand, but with additional safeguards and cultural orientation programs for all participants. As the council dispersed, Ambassador Vasquez approached Tyler. "Nice work in there," she said quietly. "You have a natural diplomatic instinct, Grant." Tyler smiled ruefully. "Or I just speak my mind without the filter of years of diplomatic training." "Sometimes that's exactly what's needed," she replied. "Authenticity can be more persuasive than polish." In the months that followed, Tyler settled into his role as special envoy. He worked closely with both the Earth diplomatic team and the Nelvari royal court, helping bridge cultural gaps and facilitate understanding. His unique position, neither a traditional diplomat nor a Nelvari expert, but someone with a personal connection to both worlds, proved valuable in numerous negotiations. The medical exchange program flourished, with Nelvari physicians traveling to Earth and human medical researchers coming to Nelvar Prime. The first major breakthrough came 6 months after Tyler's appointment. A collaborative team developed a treatment for a degenerative nerve condition that affected both species. The success was celebrated on both worlds, with Tyler featured prominently in the announcements. On a personal level, his relationship with Mira and her family deepened. He became something of an honorary uncle to the child, teaching her about human customs while learning from her about Nelvari traditions. When Mira enrolled in the Royal Academy, she proudly told her classmates that her favorite subject was Earth Studies, a curriculum that Tyler occasionally contributed to. A year after the marketplace incident, Tyler returned to Earth for the first time, accompanying King Ellerin on a state visit. The reception was grander than he could have imagined. Crowds lining the streets of New Geneva, news coverage across the planet. His parents were invited as honored guests to the formal state dinner. His mother cried when she saw him, running her hands over his face as if to confirm he was really there. "My boy," she kept saying, "my brave boy." His father, more reserved but equally emotional, simply embraced him tightly. "Proud of you, son," he whispered. "Always knew you were meant for something special." The visit was a diplomatic triumph, resulting in expanded cooperation between Earth and Nelvar across multiple domains. Trade agreements were signed, cultural exchange programs established, and a joint space exploration initiative announced. Throughout it all, Tyler maintained the same straightforward approach that had characterized his initial council appearance. He spoke honestly about both the challenges and opportunities of interspecies relations, drawing on his unique perspective as someone who had crossed cultural boundaries in the most dramatic way possible. On the final night of the Earth visit, a private dinner was held for the diplomatic teams. After the meal, King Ellerin called for attention and raised his glass. "To Tyler Grant," he said, "who began as one world's maintenance worker and became another world's hero, who showed us all that courage and compassion transcend species." Tyler accepted the toast with a mix of embarrassment and pride. Later, as the gathering broke into smaller conversations, he found himself standing with Ambassador Vasquez and Roland near a large window overlooking the Earthnell Memorial Garden, a new addition to the diplomatic complex featuring plants from both worlds. "Did you ever imagine this is where you'd end up?" Vasquez asked, "when you were cleaning floors on the Harmony?" Tyler shook his head. "Never. I thought I'd miss my chance to make a difference when I failed the military medical exam." Roland made a soft sound, the Nelvari equivalent of a thoughtful hum. "Perhaps the universe had a different path in mind for you, one that required you to be precisely where you were that day in the marketplace." "I don't know about that," Tyler said, "but I'm grateful for how things turned out, even 8 blade wounds." He smiled ruefully, touching his side where the deepest scar remained. "The Nelvari have a saying," Roland offered. "The straightest path is rarely the most meaningful." Your journey has certainly proven that true. As they continued talking, Tyler noticed Mira across the room, engaged in animated conversation with his sister. The two had hit it off immediately, bonding over their shared experience of having brothers suddenly thrust into the spotlight. Watching them, Tyler felt a sense of profound satisfaction. This was what it was all about. Not grand diplomatic gestures or formal agreements, but real connections between individuals across the divide of species. Later that night, as he prepared for bed in his guest quarters, Tyler found himself thinking about the maintenance worker he had once been, the invisible man who cleaned floors and fixed plumbing. The rejected military applicant who had believed his chance to matter had passed him by. If he could speak to that Tyler now, what would he say? Perhaps simply this: that purpose often finds us in unexpected moments. That the measure of a life isn't in titles or recognition, but in the choices made when it matters most. And that sometimes standing between danger and the vulnerable is exactly where you're meant to be, even if you don't know it until you're bleeding from 8 blade wounds on a station floor, far from home. 2 years to the day after the marketplace incident, a statue was unveiled in the central plaza of Nexus Station. It depicted a human figure standing protectively before a Nelvari child, facing unseen danger with determination. The plaque read simply, "For Tyler Grant of Earth, who showed us that courage knows no species." Tyler, standing beside Mira at the unveiling ceremony, leaned down to whisper in her ear. "A bit dramatic, don't you think?" Mira, now 2 years older and significantly taller, though still recognizably the child he had protected, smiled up at him. "Not at all," she replied with the certainty of youth. "You're a hero, Tyler. Heroes get statues." Tyler shook his head, but he was smiling too. "I'm just a guy who did what needed doing. Nothing special about that." "That," said Mira, with surprising wisdom, "is exactly what makes it special." As applause filled the plaza, Tyler gazed at the statue, not with pride, but with humility. It wasn't really about him. He knew it was about the possibility the moment had represented. The proof that when it mattered, differences of species, culture, and biology could fade away. That protection of the innocent could transcend all boundaries. That, he thought, was a legacy worth having. Not bad for a janitor who had once believed he had nothing significant to offer the universe. The ceremony concluded with speeches from dignitaries of multiple species, each emphasizing the incident as a turning point in interspecies relations. The Draxian ambassador spoke last, formally reiterating his government's commitment to peaceful cooperation and explicitly rejecting the extremism that had led to the attack. Afterward, as the crowd dispersed, Tyler found himself approached by a young human in a maintenance uniform. The name badge read, Ryan Mitchell. "Sir," the young man said nervously, "I just wanted to say, well, you're an inspiration to all of us maintenance workers." Tyler smiled warmly. "Thank you, Ryan. But remember, the uniform doesn't define what you're capable of. It never did." As Ryan walked away, visibly uplifted by the brief encounter, Roland appeared at Tyler's side. "A wise sentiment," the ambassador observed. "One that applies across species boundaries as well." Tyler replied with a grin. "Indeed, you have," Roland agreed. "And taught quite a few things as well." They watched as Mira rejoined them, chattering excitedly about the statue and the speeches. Tyler felt a surge of affection for the child who had unwittingly changed the course of his life, and whom he had protected without a second thought. Some choices, he reflected, define us more than any title or position ever could. The choice he had made that day in the marketplace, to stand between a child and danger, had revealed something essential about himself that no military rejection or menial job could diminish. And if taking 8 blades for an alien child had led him here, to meaningful work, to cherished relationships, to a sense of purpose he had once thought forever beyond his reach, then every scar was more than worth it. And that was the end of the story.